Hi, everybody. It's Mr. Bold with my good buddies Chester and Scooter. We're going to read to you a little bit from King George. What was he thinking? This is step 8 from chapter 1, How to Start a Revolution. This is Keep the Tea Tax. After the massacre, General Gage pulled the British soldiers out of Boston. This helped calm things down. Over in Britain, leaders saw that the Townshend Acts were much more trouble than they were worth. Parliament voted to repeal the taxes. Well, most of them. They left a tax on tea. This was done on very specific instructions from King George. There's King George. He said, "I am clear that there must always be one tax to keep up the right, and as such, I approve the tea duty." Sure, the king knew this small tea tax would not bring in any real money. He just wanted everyone to know that Britain still had the power to tax the colonies. Told you he was stubborn. Step 9. Throw a tea party. On the night of December 16th, 1773, a Boston shoemaker named George Hughes went into a blacksmith's shop and smeared coal dust on his face. He was hoping it would look like the war paint of a Mohawk Indian. It didn't. But that was okay. The main idea was to be in disguise. Hughes went out into the dark street with an axe in his hand. Dozens of men, all badly disguised as Indians, were marching down to the waterfront. Hughes joined the strange parade. 3 ships full of British tea were tied up at a wharf in Boston Harbor. The people of Boston had refused to let the ship owners unload the cargo. They had no intention of paying the tea tax, so the tea sat in the ships, neatly packed in chests. Not for long. George Hughes and the other disguised Sons of Liberty rowed out to the British ships. Communicating with only grunts and silent signals, about 50 men boarded each ship. They dragged the chests of tea up to the deck, chopped them open with axes, and dumped the tea into Boston Harbor. Hundreds of people came down to the wharf to watch. Hughes even saw a few spectators sneak onto the ships to snag some of the tea. There were several attempts, he recalled, made by some of the citizens of Boston to carry off small quantities of it for their family use. They would watch for their opportunity to snatch up a handful from the deck where it became plentifully scattered and put it into their pockets. Hughes caught one man shoving loose tea leaves into the lining of his coat. Hughes yanked off the coat, and the guy ran away. It took about 3 hours to dump all the tea. Then, just to make sure no one was hiding any tea, each of the Mohawks was asked to take off his shoes and shake them out into the water. When George Hughes finally got home that night, he told his wife, Sally, all about the Boston Tea Party. Step 10. Pay the fiddler. A British naval commander named Admiral Montague watched the Boston Tea Party from the window of his waterfront house. As the disguised Sons of Liberty marched away from the wharf, Montague opened his window and exchanged shouts with one of the men. Montague said, "Well, boys, you've had a fine, pleasant evening for your Indian caper, haven't you? But mind, you have got to pay the fiddler yet." Son of Liberty, "I just come out here, if you please, and we'll settle the bill in 2 minutes." Montague shut his window. The men cheered and laughed. Montague was right, though. The people of Boston would have to pay the fiddler. In other words, they would have to face the consequences of their actions. One consequence was that King George threw an absolute fit. He called the Tea Party violent and outrageous, and he wasn't alone. Even members of Parliament who usually supported the Americans were furious about the destruction of British tea. A member of Parliament named Charles Van captured the angry mood in London, declaring, here's Charles Van right there. He says, "The town of Boston ought to be boxed about their ears and destroyed. I am of the opinion that you will never meet with that proper obedience to the laws of this country until you have destroyed that nest of locusts." Yikes. Now that's the kind of advice King George liked. At the king's request, Parliament passed a series of laws designed to teach the people of Boston once and for all that British authority must be obeyed. No fooling around now. Parliament ordered the port of Boston shut down until the town paid for the ruined tea. The people of Massachusetts would no longer be allowed to elect their own judges or sheriffs, and if the residents of Boston wanted to hold a town meeting, they would need permission from British officials. To enforce all of this, General Thomas Gage was sent back to Boston, this time with 4,000 British soldiers. That should solve everything, right? What do you think, Scooter? Let's see. He's excited. See you later.